Now hopefully you guys have already been introduced to what can be referred to as a competitive advantage. You guys will be taking the capstone course, BMGT or Management 4400, I believe is the number. So it's basically your strategy class where you guys will be competing against your fellow classmates. And I just want you to definitely understand that time can definitely be utilized as a competitive advantage over those folks or companies that you compete with. As everybody knows, everyone out there in the world is beginning to be even more impatient. We're all now very used to having everything at the touch of a finger. We're impatient. So due to such things as technology gains and paradigm shifts, everyone is basically now addicted to immediate satisfaction and instantaneous gratification. Everybody wants everything yesterday. So we've talked a little bit about delivery times and how we need to track on-time delivery, etc. Let's take a look at how we can literally go in and measure time and use it in analysis and use it in our tracking and utilize how fast we can do things as a competitive advantage. So time is definitely an increasingly important strategic factor for many companies. Therefore, proper time management can increase our revenues and also decrease our cost. So companies view time as a driver of strategy, and managers need to measure time properly in order to manage it. There are two operational measures of time. One is CRT, or customer response time. How quickly companies can respond to customers' demands for the product or the service being provided. On-time performance indicates how reliable companies are at meeting the scheduled delivery date or the promised delivery date. Are we on time or not? Now, I can assure you that there are many companies out there who are tracking this information on their suppliers. So if you happen to be involved in some type of supply chain as a vendor or supplier to a company, you can ask for some of these reports, because basically what they are doing is putting within their system, when they do the purchase order, the delivery date and possibly even time that is expected for the order, and then they will notate when the order is actually received, and you're either on time, early, or late. And by how early or how late you are is also available in many of these systems. Managers can also measure the causes and cost of delays. Why was it late? Was it late because of something in the manufacturing process? Was it late due to something to do with the transportation between the shipping dock and the receiving dock? What was the problem? Many of this information can also be captured and, of course, be available in a report format. All right, so let's take a look here at basically the customer response time and how we can break it down into little pieces. All right, so customer response time is how long it takes from the time a customer places an order for a product or service to the time that the product or service is delivered to the customer. All right, so customer places the order, it goes all through the process within the facility, and it is finally delivered to the customer. So notice we have a lot of things going on between when the customer gives us the purchase order number and when they actually finally receive the product. All right, so let's break it down. Here we have receipt time. Receipt time is how long it takes from the sales or the marketing department who receives that purchase order to then specify to the manufacturing department the exact requirements or specifications of the customer order. All right, this is if it's a very detailed item that manufacturing has to produce. Maybe if we've just got a standard product or service, we just say they want X number of units of product B, okay? Manufacturing cycle time, notice, goes from when the order is received by manufacturing to when the order is finally 100% completed. The order has been produced or manufactured. It is no longer a work in process item. It is now finished goods and is available to leave the building. Notice that the manufacturing cycle time, and might I add, this is also commonly referred to as manufacturing lead time. Again, it's how long it takes from receipt of the order by the manufacturing department to the time that the manufacturing department is finally finished with the item. But notice that it's got waiting time, all right, before the item can actually be set up on the machine and actually manufactured or actually put on the assembly line and started is our waiting time. Waiting time is one thing. Manufacturing time is actually time being manufactured. All right, so consider what is going on during waiting time. We have talked about the fact that we have things such as inventory carrying cost already in the past. So customer response time, this is a very critical issue. Customer response time is how long it takes from the time a customer places an order for a product or service to the time the product or service is delivered to the customer. Manufacturing cycle time is how long it takes from the time an order is received by manufacturing to the time a finished good is produced. Manufacturing cycle time or manufacturing lead time is only one part of the customer response time. Delays in delivering an order for a product or service can occur because of delays in receiving customer orders and delays in delivering a completed order to a customer. We do have trade-offs between customer response time and on-time performance. Simply scheduling longer customer response time makes achieving on-time performance easier. All right, so be careful with that. And just telling them a longer response date or date to be expected. In other words, you're building in slack for the receipt of the order. That might be great, but maybe you are not going to get the purchase order if you cannot get it to them by their really needed date, and they go and find somebody else that can respond faster. So consider why we may have issues in our manufacturing lead time or manufacturing cycle time. What about limited capacity and bottlenecks? We have talked about bottlenecks in past chapters, so could the machine be our bottleneck? Are we going to have additional inventory carrying costs because we have not set up our processes and our timing correctly based on that constraint or that limited capacity or that bottleneck. So think about some of the things that we've learned in other chapters about how this process works and how some costs come into play. Again, those inventory carrying costs. In regards to, let's take one more peek here. Notice that we've got manufacturing cycle time is made up of waiting time plus manufacturing time. And then customer response time is receipt time plus manufacturing cycle time plus delivery time. Can we measure this in hours or days? Absolutely. Notice again here, if we were to say, what is customer response time? We would either say receipt time plus manufacturing cycle time plus delivery time. But we could also say receipt time plus waiting time plus manufacturing time plus delivery time. Okay, so just depending on what you're given, can you calculate customer response time and can you calculate manufacturing cycle time? Here are those formulas broken down for you that we basically have just gone for. You guys, again, you could take this right here, manufacturing cycle time, and insert plus waiting time plus manufacturing time in order to get the total for customer response time. So a time driver is any factor that causes a change in the speed of an activity when the factor changes. Typically, that we're looking at two time drivers. Uncertainty about when customers will order products and services, and bottlenecks due to limited capacity. We have already talked about what a bottleneck is. It occurs in an operation when the work to be performed approaches or exceeds the capacity available to do it. Recall that I gave you guys an example earlier in the semester about the Coca-Cola or even the Pepsi or Double Cola manufacturing facilities here in town. Those processes are limited by the number of ounces that can come flowing out of those machines. That could be their bottleneck. Managers should use the 5-step decision-making process to examine opportunities. We can calculate average wait time by using the following formula. Okay, so when do we have issues? How much time is spent in the manufacturing process, waiting to get onto the machine and to be processed? We can literally come up with an average waiting time, and here is the formula. You're going to take the annual average number of orders and you're going to multiply it times the manufacturing time per order squared. You're going to take that result and you're going to divide it by 2 times the annual capacity minus the result of annual average number of orders times the manufacturing time per order. And once you've done all that, you can calculate the average waiting time. We've talked about the balanced scorecard. Let's consider how these time-based measures play into the balanced scorecard. Basically, on utilizing that same structure, we know that the 4 areas of the balanced scorecard can exhibit what happens when we better utilize our time. We know that when we can do products faster, the customers will be happier because, of course, they want everything yesterday and they're impatient. All right, so the financial measures, we expect to see revenue gains. If the type of product or service that we offer is of urgent nature with many types of customers, if we can respond faster due to our better management of our time and how our process runs, then we will have people willing to pay us more for our product because we can respond faster. All right, so they're willing to pay for that response, that reduced wait time from their end of the spectrum. All right, we all know time is money. I could go into some serious stories about response time and rush deliveries at Southern Tool Steel. I'll just share with you two quick ones. One of our customers was in Knoxville, Tennessee, and when I was in sales, they had a dire breakdown situation, and they needed a particular type of metal that would be delivered in coils, large coils, if you will, and there was nobody within the Southeast with this material in stock. They contacted me and told me that they would pay any price to get this stuff in. I was actually able to find someone in California with the stuff on their floor. I literally chartered a plane to fly this stuff from California to the Chattanooga airport, where I personally proceeded to go pick the item up in a 1-ton flatbed truck and delivered it myself to Knoxville. They were willing to pay that due to the fact that their entire assembly line was down without this material. Now, I don't happen to recall this particular company's hourly rate of loss, but this next one that I can discuss, their rate was $375,000 an hour, and they needed some material that I also had to figure out how to go and get it and then deliver it to them. So $375,000 an hour can be lost by some companies when their lines or assembly processes are down, and they are willing to pay above and beyond that. So time is money. We have talked about the carrying cost of inventory. So getting our processes down pat and reducing that wait time before the manufacturing process can begin, of course, is going to improve our bottom line because we can reduce our carrying cost of inventory, which we've already talked about in the past chapter of how to calculate. And if we can reduce those carrying costs, then we know our bottom line will improve. Regarding those customer measures, again, they want it quick. They're going to be measuring that customer response time. Not only do they want good quality products, but they want the product when they want the product. We want to be on time or possibly early. Sometimes they don't even want it early. They want it JIT, just in time. They don't want to have it sitting on their floor and affecting their carrying cost of inventory. So they are looking for on-time performance, and they are looking for quality product. Manufacturing cycle time affects both revenues and cost. Revenues are affected because customers are willing to pay a higher price for faster delivery, which we have discussed, and relevant costs will likely include inventory carrying cost. Internal business process measures, again, looking at the balance scorecard, our average manufacturing time for key products is something that we can track and watch for trends. We wouldn't be expecting any increases. If it's increasing, we know that time is money. Maybe we need to drill down into why the manufacturing time is increasing. We can look at manufacturing cycle efficiency. And we can also track still the defective units produced at bottleneck operations, because we know we have to focus on those bottlenecks and improve that area, because we know that it can cause backups and cost us money. Average reduction in setup time and processing time at bottleneck operations is another key factor that we can look at. In many scenarios that we've seen where setup time is discussed, Setup time is very expensive. It's almost like looking at idle time. How long does it take for us to make changes or tweak settings to the machine and put the direct materials into it and get it ready to start manufacturing? All right, so what can we do to streamline and reduce setup time? Because again, time is money. Managers do use both financial and non-financial measures to manage the performance of their firms along the time dimension. We have seen that we can track employee satisfaction already. We've talked about that. And the number of employees trained in managing bottleneck operations can be added into our learning and growth measures. Hopefully you guys will be able to work with some really good human resources admin folks and hopefully have the opportunity to use some of the better systems for managing human resources where things like this can be tracked. Many of the Fortune 500 companies do have some very good integrated systems for tracking employee engagement as well as their training that they have been through, including certifications and other items. It's really nice that they have access to those types of systems.